an emergency, and if you're doing safety inductions and stuff like that, what you should be talking about to your guys, so they understand what it's for. So at the end of the day, this product is a life safety item. So it's meant to be, it's called WES, Wireless Evacuation System. So it's meant to evacuate the site should anything happen, should you need to evacuate the site, gets everyone off the site nice and efficiently. So I know you guys use the air horn before and stuff like that. It's basically a more up-to-date version of that. If you treat this as a fire alarm system, so if this goes off, that means there's a fire in the building or it's an emergency to evacuate, just get all your guys off site. Yeah. So there's a couple of different components to the system. They're all wireless, so there's no power supply required, no interconnecting cables, which is just an advantage on a construction site because it's easy to move around and whatnot. So you've got the base station. You've got two different types of base station. You've got this one, which is the Connect, and then you've got another one which is in there called a standard base station, which you have as like a roaming base station. So each of these individual devices have got a tamper switch on the back, and that means if someone tries to remove it from the wall, it's going to send you a notification. I'm going to talk through the different notifications that you're going to get on the base station. Is everybody in this circle going to be operating this, or is it more to just understand what the system is? Have you got certain people that are going to
be operating?
Yeah, most of them.
You're going to be operating?
Yeah.
We have one of those in our office, and
cool.
and we can respond and turn off the code. Or...
Yeah, got you. Okay, just to know what kind of depth I go into. So yeah, you're going to get various different warnings on here, and I'll talk through what those different warnings are then. So yeah, one of the notifications that you're going to get on the base station is a tamper switch. So if this gets removed from the wall, or if the wind blows it and it kind of moves away, something like that, you're going to get a notification on here, and it's going to say EXT for external tamper. And then the next digit you're going to get is the number, so it's the unit number of the device, right? So each one of these individual devices has got an individual unique number dotted around the site. So it just gives you a chance to identify where that unit is on the project. And I think you've done it, so it's the floor number and then the stairwell number, is that right? I think that's what we were talking about before. So you should be able to identify it pretty easy when you get the notification through. Yeah? Feel free to ask questions as we're going through.
So the tamper switch on the unit themselves, they're pretty sensitive in the sense that for vibration, wind, etc. We've had that go off in the office a bunch of times, sometimes in a row, sometimes daily, whatever.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't correlate with what's going on in the day. So.
Right. I can have a look at them when I'm here. I'm going to do a site walk anyway, just to make sure everything's all right. But the way that they're installed is basically two screws into plywood or whatever it may be. So as long as it's flat on some plywood or onto a solid surface, it shouldn't do it, because you can hear the click. Like to get the tamper switch to activate, it does require like some movement. It's not like the whole unit moving, it's like this coming away from something. So it just needs to be flush onto a surface. Yeah. Other notifications you're going to get is things like low battery, low signal. SIG is signal. We've got like a cheat sheet which is inside actually by the base stations. It gives you a list of all the different notifications that you're going to get, and then what the issue is, and then we can talk through how to.
Do we have that on the wall down by you guys?
We don't have a list of the notifications.
All right, so let's make a note that we get that.
Yep, I can send that through. I've got a soft copy and whatnot as well, if you want to have that. So yeah, it's basically called a troubleshooting guide, and it just tells you what the different notifications are. So that's the most important things that you need to know is the code, which is the fault code if you like, and then the number, because then that tells you exactly which device is out on site that's got the trouble. So that's like the ongoing maintenance. And then getting into this unit now, so this is a call point, we call it a call point. So it's got a 90 decibel sounder and it's got a flashing beacon. It's got a manual activation button as well, so if someone presses that button in, you'll see that yellow and black hatch that comes out there. That means it's pressed in. Yeah, so that means it's going to go into alarm. You've got these plastic keys, I imagine you've all got one on your key set or whatever it may be, and you just pop it in the bottom, twist it, and it pops back out and resets the system. So that's when there's an evacuation. That's when you need to have an alarm. Now the system does have a built-in safety feature. You've got a 5-minute inspection delay.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
So the key, after the building's all evacuated, those are just be continuously going off.
Yes.
And at the end of the evacuation, everything's settled down, everything's secure. We go around with keys and turn it off.
Yeah. So
Just the one that's been activated, not all of them.
yeah. So there's two different ways of silencing the alarm. I'm going to talk about the inspection delay, and then I'll get on to that point, and then we'll do an actual alarm as well, so you can see the process from start to finish about what notifications come through. So say you go onto the site, someone presses this button, but it's a false alarm. Maybe someone's messing around, maybe they pressed it with their elbow or whatever it may be. You've got an inspection delay built into each of the base stations. So that's why the base stations need to be accessible, because you're going to get a countdown on the base station. It's going to start counting down from 5 minutes, and it's going to tell you the unit number. 1, 2, 3, 4 out on site has been pressed. So then you get on the radio, say, is this a real emergency or is it a false alarm? So then you make the decision whether you want to evacuate the site or whether you want to silence it during the countdown. Okay? So as long as you've got that process in place, that's something internally that you'll need to figure out. So as this is counting down from 5 minutes, you get on the radio, yeah, it's something happened out on site, we need to evacuate the site. You can then hit the check mark and it'll say evacuate site, yes or no. Select yes, and then it goes into alarm. All the devices on the system then will go into alarm. Until that point, it's silent.
By pressing yes on the base station, you override the 5-minute delay.
Correct. Yeah. So there's 2 different ways of override. Well, yeah, 3 different ways of overriding it. So you can hit there and say yes, and that'll evacuate the site. Hit there and say no, and then it'll silence the system. This one's still going to be pressed in. So going back to your point earlier. So this one's still going to be pressed in because you've silenced it from the base station. Yeah. So what it's going to say is unit number 1234 is latched. Again, it's on that fault code, LAT, latched. That means that that's pressed in. So it's not going to go into alarm again because it knows that this one's already gone into alarm and it's been silenced. Does that make sense?
So you reset it.
So you just go and reset it. So it's not going to go straight back into alarm as long as you reset it, and then it just goes back into normal operation. Okay?
Are all the keys identical?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, all
Do
identical.
you have any?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many do you have? All right, so you have one. Who else has one?
I have one, Keyron has one, Keyron has a few extras.
I'm gonna go out and get lanyards, just because
Yeah.
it might be a little easier to keep track of,
No.
and also if you have it, you already know where it is. And
Yeah.
I just instead of one getting dropped, it's something. I'll go out today and get you key lanyards, and we'll use those.
Cool. And then I mentioned 3 ways. So the third way to override it, again, it's another safety feature. So this one's pressed in, starts counting down from 5 minutes, it gets to 3 minutes, someone else sees something elsewhere, they press the button, so that means 2 devices are activated. It's going to automatically kick that inspection delay out because it knows it's not a false alarm then. It knows there's something happening because if 2 devices are activated on the system, it's automatically going to go into alarm.
Yeah.
So again, that's a nice trick if you are out on site, you can't get access to the base station, but you know it's a real emergency.
Press
Hit
it
2
down.
and then it'll go straight into alarm.
Good.
Yeah. And again, just to site, if you're out on site as well and you know it's been pressed by mistake, if you just reset it, that's going to silence the alarm as well. So there's a few different ways of activating and silencing it. So the main 2 ways really is from the base station, you can activate, silence it. From the core point, you press it in or reset it, and that silences it as well. You with me so far? Cool. Another feature on the base station is, on the core points, is this medical alert function as well. So it might be in a medical emergency out on site, someone's having a heart attack, someone's giving CPR, but they want to call for medical assistance out on site. They don't want to leave that person. So what they can do is hit this medical button here, the green button. So if they press that in for 2 seconds, it's going to send a notification to the base station to say there's a medical emergency in this location, wherever the core point that's been pressed is. So again, it's important to know the numbers because then you can send medical help to wherever that is. So that's not going to go into evacuation because it's a medical emergency. There's no need to evacuate the site, but it's going to send help to wherever it is. So again, it gets back to the importance of having the base stations in a location where people are going to be monitoring them and they know what to do with it.
Question. Medical alert. Will it go to the base station?
Yes.
And then they'll be responsible for calling.
Whoever, the medic,
Yeah,
whatever.
okay.
Yeah, whatever that process is
Okay.
from there.
So
yeah.
we stay there until that person from the base station gets the ambulance to the area, to
Yeah.
this wherever the call is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and then all of the base stations, because they're all cloned together, they're all going to give the same message. So wherever they are on site, you're going to get that message on the base station. Okay?
These don't create any off-site notices. This is strictly an on-site
On-site.
notice. Anything that's got to be notified off-site, we got to make a phone call.
So the medical alarm goes off, we're gonna have to get eyes on whatever situation.
Right.
Exactly.
An amputated finger, somebody having a heart attack, somebody falls, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then get 911, obviously, and help ASAP.
I have to be honest with you. That part of it scares me because I'm going to have guys pushing buttons for Band-Aids
That's what I was getting.
because they're going to have a little cut on their finger, and then we're going to be rushing around, and then we're going to get there and find out this guy needs a Band-Aid.
Got it. Yeah, it's a valid question.
Well,
it's a valid point.
It's been there now for 3 months. If we notify them and make sure we are very specific to the foreman about the degree, what we're talking about. Well, that's
People
a
mention
bet.
it every-
I get what you're, and people are
$50.
asses. We all know that.
Yeah.
But I think it's very specifically, it's guys, understand what this is. This isn't cuts, twisted ankle, whatever. This is immobilized, heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is for your men.
We're going to have to stress next week during the training that this is for emergencies. Emergencies only, not
Listen,
nonsense.
Yeah.
listen, and if we come there and say that's a no-brainer, shouldn't have been hit, then we get the guy, we make it clear, guy's gonna go. But we get there and it's, I can kind of see it, it's good.
Yeah.
I'd rather do it then, and,
Yeah, better to be safe
and that's
than
what we'll
sorry.
make clear. It's, guys, it's gonna be a no-brainer to us, whether we need to be there. And people hitting it for Band-Aids are gonna be gone.
So let's, well, I'll set up the system. You guys have already set it up already. You don't need training on that, I don't believe. Do you know how to do it, or do you want to go through that again?
How to set that off?
Yeah, set it up. Set, like, add units to it and stuff like that.
Set it up.
Yeah.
Set it.
Yeah,
Oh,
not
okay.
set it
Sorry.
off,
Okay.
no.
No, Kieran has that down pat.
Cool.
Unfortunately, Kieran worked late last night, so he's not here this morning.
That's fine.
But he has that part of it down pat.
Got you. So I'll just set it up quickly then. There's no need to talk through it, but it's just asking me a few different questions here about the inspection delay. I'll set it up at 5 minutes, as you guys have got. And then the pre-alarm, which means it goes into alarm as it's counting down, but just a separate noise. But nobody has that because it confuses people. Whether it's, yeah, you want it to be an alarm and then everyone gets off site. It's simple instructions there. So, as I mentioned before, we can give each one of these devices a unit number, and I'll call this one, it doesn't really matter because we're not connecting it to the network. So yeah, that's how easy it is to set up a system, by the way. That's why it's designed for construction, because it's meant to be easy to install and easy to add units to, and to take it to the next project when this one's finished as well. So we've got a working system basically now. So I'm going to talk through some of the different notifications that you're going to get. So as I mentioned before, the external tamper, if I move it, you're going to get a notification on here. You can hear that beeping, and it's telling me unit number 1234, external tamper. And then you can either screw it back in place, which will reset it, or you can go to the base station and silence it from here. It's always going to be the case, and then when I do a demo, it's just frozen.
This unit's self-check, correct, as well?
Yeah,
Periodically?
it does. Every 12 hours it goes back, and
We had to go off in the office, like I said, out of the blue.
yeah. Yeah, it just go every 12 hours it goes into a system poll, so it goes around the individual units and checks to make sure everything is in place. They're all password protected as well. I saw you got it written on the front of it, so it's 1234. So they're all 1234. That's how it comes out of the box as well. So then, if there's a medical emergency, so like I said, if someone has a medical emergency out on site, they can press this medical button here, and then for 2 seconds, and then it's going to tell you the date, time, unit number, and what the emergency is, which is MED, for medical emergency. And then you can accept it by hitting the check mark, and then put in the passcode, and then it will silence it. So you need to silence it by putting in the passcode, because it's going to log all these events as well. So if anything happens, you can go back to these base stations and go through the logs and see how many medical emergencies there were, how many activations, So it keeps all that information on the base station as well. Okay?
Now the passcodes are just one set passcode. It's not, say, say they have one, these guys have one, so we know where it's.
No, it's just
one.
one set passcode. So just the responsible people have access to that. So you know it's a group of people that have.
Our passcode is 1234.
Yeah.
I was just saying if there was a way, like if you had one, he had one, that way we know who clears it. But it's all one. That's it. Thank you.
So let's set it into alarm then. So yeah, this is out on site. I've gone out to site. I've seen that there's an emergency out there. So I'm gonna press this button. So this is called a chirp. So the unit that's been pressed, this is going to make that sound. So you're going to identify which one's been pressed. Okay, so all of the other devices on site are not going to make any sound. It's going to be silent, just the one that's pressed. Okay. So you can see on here that it's counting down now from 5 minutes. Everyone can see. So now it's going to give us two options. We can either silence it with the key. So if I put the key in there now and twist it, it's going to silence the alarm, nothing's going to happen. I can also press another call point. If I press another call point, it's going to kick out the inspection delay and it goes straight into alarm because of that double knock function. I can also, if I've got access to a base station, I can do both of those things from here as well. So I can silence it or I can override it and go into alarm. So yeah, I've gone out on site and it says evacuate site, yes or no. Yes, it's a real emergency. So I'm going to hit yes. Are you sure this is going to make a sound on the site? So it asks you a couple of times, so you're not going to have downtime of 500 guys or whatever you've got here. And then you hit select yes, and then it goes into full alarm. So this is the full alarm tone. Okay. So you can silence it either with the key. Oh, I silence it here actually. So to silence it, you hit the check mark. And then it says silence alarm, yes or no. So you select yes, and then you put the passcode in, and then it silences the alarm from the base station. So I've silenced it from the base station so we can see the alert that we're going to get now. Because this one's still pressed in. It's not going to go back into alarm, it's just going to let you know that this one's still pressed in. Now again, this is called chirping, so it's checking around all the devices, making sure there's no other activations on the system. It's just like calming down. Okay, so now all the units are silenced. Again, it's chirping because it's pressed in and it's telling you here that it's latched. Okay, so then you just go back with your key, put it into the bottom, turn it counterclockwise and it pops back out, and then that'll silence it from there. So that's the process from start to finish really. We can do another alarm as well, and I'll show you. I'll just silence it so it doesn't go into alarm. We can do that as well. But it does talk you through the steps. If something happens on here, it's going to talk you through what to do on here. So evacuate the site, silence the alarm. As long as you know the passcode, you can figure it out from here. So really, that's it, guys.
So let me ask you about the text alert.
Yes.
So what's up with that?
Have you got the text alerts
We did.
activated?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think that Kieran's not here, so I don't know if it's activated.
I haven't gotten a test. I don't think we've activated that part.
It was supposed to be set up and activated.
I can look through that now.
Okay.
So what we can do, we can put 6 telephone numbers in there.
Okay.
If you've got the text activated, you put 6 telephone numbers in it, and you can set the different notifications that person gets as well. So you can set, everyone gets the alarm, everyone gets the evacuation because it's an emergency. You can set the medics to have, or the first aiders to have the first aid medical alert. Like you said, the tamper switches and stuff like that, they can go off quite a lot if they're not installed right, or you're moving them around, so that annoys people. So maybe you don't want everyone to get that tamper switch notification because it's going to send you text messages quite often. Okay. So we can go through that and just see which 6 people you want on there. Again, you just go through that on the. It's a bit bright, so you can't really see the screen that well from a distance. But there's a communications section in the settings here, and then it says add user details. So you just go through it. And again, it talks you through what to do on here. But I can send you a step-by-step guide as well in the operation guide. But I'll check this while I'm here and make sure we've got all that set up as well.
Right.
You've also got some smoke detectors, I believe, or is it heat detectors? I think it's smoke detectors.
I have 4.
Yeah. So you're going to start putting them in as you put the assets in the building, and that's going to work the same as a fire alarm system. So if that picks up smoke, again, it's going to send you a notification here. It's not going to go into alarm. is going to have that 5-minute countdown. So it's going to give you time to check whether it's a real emergency or whether it's a false alarm from hot works or something like that. So that's going to start counting down. Again, you can silence it. Once it gets down to 5 minutes, after 5 minutes, or you do something during that time, it's going to go into full alarm as well. So again, it works like a full fire alarm system, but just with that inspection delay to give you time. So they're going to be added to the system as you start enclosing the walls and getting the assets in there and stuff.
I have a question. Can you turn off the smoke detector from the box?
You can't on the timing, but the way that you can basically just switch it off. You can just disconnect it from the network.
Right.
You saw how simple it was to add a unit to it. So you, at the start of the day, at the end of the day, the start of the day you can switch it off and just disconnect it from the network. At the end of the day, switch it back on and pair
My
it in there.
mentality is if we have welding going on or something in that area, rather than getting 26 million alarms,
Sure.
is there just a way to pause it, out of service or whatever?
They come with a plastic cap, so it's got like a cover that goes over the detector. So again, you leave that on during the day, and then at night you can just take that cover off. It's a bit risky because you have to make sure that people take the covers off.
Yeah,
That's an important thing, but that's again just a
that's why
process thing.
if it's easier to, unit, if we have 4 of them, unit 2 out of service, we document it due to welding in the area, then we remember to put it back on. Whoever's late man puts it back on. And
not from the base station. It really is just switching the device off, and then it takes it out of the network, and then you switch it on, put the unit number in here, and hold the A button and connect it in. If you want to do it that way, or just put the cover over it.
All right, just curious.
Whichever.
Having a long-term background in fire alarms, how sensitive are these smoke detectors from a construction standpoint versus a regular? Number one. Number two, is there a height requirement in terms of this? Because obviously we have very high ceilings.
Sure.
I say the sensitivity because this thing, like I said, keeps going off in dust.
No, it's a good question. So this is a 10-year-old product now, just to give you a little bit of history. It's a long story, but it's a 10-year-old product, and we started off with standard smoke detectors, and we were getting false alarms all the time. So we were like, this is not going to work. So we've got heat detectors as well, so we replaced them with heat detectors after a couple of years because of all the false alarms. And then we were made aware of a new technology called dust-resistant smoke detectors. They use them in industrial applications. So that's what you've got, dust-resistant smoke detectors. And the way that works, it's got 2 optical sensors. So the way that a smoke detector works, it's got a beam of light that goes from a mirror to the light. If something breaks that, it goes into alarm. So smoke breaks it basically. So what this has, it's a second optical detector, and that's tucked away like at the back of the device up here. So the way that smoke travels, it self-propels. So you've seen the way that smoke goes, it self-propels. Dust needs to be pushed by a force. So to get into that second chamber, the smoke can just get up there by itself, and both of those beams need to be activated. So dust, it's got like a filter around the outside as well, so the large particles don't go in there. And then, so the study that we've done from our old devices, our standard smoke detectors, to the dust resistant, it's a reduction of around 85%. So you do have some false alarms, but it's not, and that's going to be mainly if you're doing hot works, because hot works is smoke. It's going to set off. But if it's dust, it shouldn't go. And I think that's about it really. The day-to-day maintenance of the system, every couple of weeks you should be doing a system test, which is what I'm going to do now. To activate the system test, you go into the settings, go into system test, and basically what that's going to do, it's going to just show you. All of these lights, again, you can't really see, it's a bit bright, but that's a solid green LED now. So any device that's on the network is going to go a solid green LED, and that's going to, you just basically walk the site, make sure all those lights are solid green LED. It's just, it requires more signal to get that communication, so you know that it's well within the range. Even though you do get the polling twice a day, this is just an extra feature just to make sure everything's all communicating from a visual point of view as well. So when you're doing your safety inductions to your guys, it's really just saying, if there's an emergency, press a button. If they'd like to evacuate the site, press the big button. If it's a medical emergency, press the green button. It does say it on there, but it's kind of small text. And then if you hear the sound, just evacuate the site basically.
Or the second sound, the siren sound.
Yeah, because you've got the only one that's going to make a sound is the one that's pressed. So if someone's by that area, they're going to know that someone's pressed that button. But if they're on the second floor, third floor, fourth floor, they're not even going to hear it. So
for device, unlike a regular fire alarm system, it's not an all call. It's not going to communicate to the other ones like this is really something.
Well, when
Just
it hits
gonna
five,
stay
when it hits 5 minutes, it does.
Specific, okay.
right, yeah, yeah. During that inspection delay
that's
time,
gonna-
it's not going to do anything.
Okay, I got you.
It does have an option to do that. That all of the devices will chirp, but like I said earlier, it just confuses
Food for thought,
people.
so we know ahead of time.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's more for like high risk areas like mining applications. We've done that
Right.
in mines and
Right.
stuff. But because you've got easy access really to get off the site,
Right.
you can afford to keep it silent for a bit.
Very good.
Okay, so that's it. Any questions? I've got some business cards as well. So any questions that you have in the future or whatever, feel free to reach out. We have got a website as well called WES3.com, and it's got how-to videos. So it's how to pair units together, how to set an alarm, how to silence an alarm, all that kind of stuff. So
You
if you
can
want to go
set
to
that delay for as long or as short as you want.
you can set it in 1 minute increments up to 10 minutes. But it needs to be set when you're setting the system up. So that's kind of set now as
Can
5
you
minutes,
re-
unless you want to reset
you
it all
can-
up again.
Oh, so you can't change it.
Not after it's
Not
installed.
easily.
You can basically switch them off and then repair them in with the new inspection delay.
So
If
what
you-
are we gonna do for a protocol if it goes into full alarm, the building's evacuated? Is that gonna be the protocol?
Yeah, should be.
So
So we know when we get the alert, 5 minutes is puzzle time, and we'll have one safety guy.
Yeah.
And we'll talk. If we want to have one super on that definite email, text or whatever. We have 2 guys hustling in 5 minutes. Because don't forget, it could be as simple as if Manny's way up here, knowing you're there. Hey, I got this down there now. Boom. It's.
Yeah.
You know. And if it gets to the point that we see that it's too much, then we make, the adjustment.
Yep.
But since we've been here, it's.
don't say it.
I know. That's why I didn't say it.
You're cursing it.
All right, so while we're all standing here, can we talk about, let's put radios back in use? Is there, does anybody see the value of having a radio instead of the cell phone? Other than me. So nobody else wants the radios back in use?
I'm either way.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Like I was just saying, like I talked down there, what my comment was, if they go and use it just for this, again, just to make it a quicker transition to the 2 people who are the inspectors, not for anything else.